There are many afflictions believers go through that they shouldn't have to go through. You will have faced tribulation anyway, okay? Because you walk by faith. In this world, you will face tribulation. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the following. There are things believers go through financially, things in their health that they shouldn't go through. Because they're not walking by faith, they're not walking in the power. If they walk in the power, much of the affliction they go through would dissolve. The reason it doesn't dissolve is because those believers don't walk by faith. They rely on church doctrine. They rely on Christian traditions. There's nothing wrong with the Christian tradition as long as it is Christ-centered and is practiced in the right context. The moment a tradition replaces, the moment a tradition becomes a substitute for trusting God, that's idolatry. And when you are in idolatry, you're not walking in the power. And by not walking in the power, you become vulnerable to evil spirits. You become vulnerable to the violence of the world. And once you're vulnerable to the violence of the world will come with solutions for you, which will trap you further in the world's violence. That's how it goes. And that's the place where many believers are at. They're not walking by faith. They're not decreeing, declaring, and praying in line with Christ. They are relying on worldly teachings that have been taught unto them in the name of Christ. So actually they are relying on the world, even though the world is not their friend. Don't be in such a position. Walk by faith, decree and declare. Send peace ahead of you. Many of you need to start doing that. Send peace ahead of you. Why am I repeating it so often? Because that's what you ought to do. If you send peace ahead of you, you don't have to know how to deal with a dangerous situation when it occurred. Because when you send peace ahead of you, the danger is destroyed and it's dissolved before you arrive. When you arrive, you may see the after effect of the destruction of the danger, but you won't have to deal with the danger itself because you've sent peace ahead of you. Some of you have children, okay? The children are maybe in the teenage years or maybe in the 20s already, and your children have enemies, people that want to harm them. You send peace ahead on behalf of your children. They try to stab your son. They end up being caught by the police. They go to jail. Or you have a daughter and you have people conducting voodoo rituals on her. You send peace ahead on her behalf. The voodoo altars where they do rituals on her catch fire, and there's fire over there. So they can't do the voodoo rituals anymore. It can be that your father is being exhausted at work, or your mother, you have a parent who's working and they are exhausted often because you have this toxic climate at the workplace. You send peace ahead on behalf of your parent. Suddenly, people leave the job, or suddenly there is a reform in the company structure that benefits your parents. Send peace ahead of you. You will not be able to control how things will work out, but you know it will work out for the better because you send peace ahead of you. I mean, there are too many things believers go through that they don't have to go through. Believers shouldn't go through sickness. They shouldn't go through chronic poverty. They will face attacks on their health. They will face attacks on their finances, on their economic well-being. Yes, that will happen, but those are attacks and they will fade away. Believers ought to walk by faith. We've received power to trample upon scorpions and serpents and the whole camp of the enemy, and nothing shall by no means harm us. Nothing shall by no means harm us. Christ said that. Do you believe him? Agree with Christ.